Hey guys, Pokeversity here, and this is the science behind the Pokemon games. Today we're going to be talking about Darwinian evolution. In the last episode, the first episode, we talked about how Pokemon evolution is much more like metamorphosis than Darwinian evolution, and maybe a little bit closer to Lamarck's evolution, but probably not as much. Today what I'm going to talk about is how Darwinian evolution may actually play a role in the Pokemon games, even if it's not to do with actual Pokemon evolution. So let's get started. First of all, let's define what Darwinian evolution really is. And Darwin's theory of evolution basically states that it is survival of the fittest. So a creature with a selective advantage over all other creatures in the population is more likely to survive and pass those traits down genetically. So a really simplified version of this would be if you put some rat poison down and you've got an infestation of rats, and there's one rat that has resistance to the poison that you've put down. Most of the rats will die other than the one that has resistance, and therefore the resistance genes get passed down into its offspring and you create a whole colony of resistant rats. This happens in bacteria. We can look at how things may have evolved in real life. So last time I used the giraffe as an example. Giraffes that have short necks die because they can't reach the food to eat, so they starve. Whereas ones that are maybe born taller will be able to reach the leaves at the top of the tree, and therefore they survive better. So what evidence is there in the Pokemon games that this exists? Well, up until recently, in fact, people over at Game Theory had talked about this as well. Up until recently, the only evidence was circumstantial. You know, similar Pokemon may have a common ancestor like Mew. I now think that we have 100% confirmation that this really happens. And this is completely provable through Diancie. Now, Diancie's Pokedex entry says a sudden transformation of Carbink. Its pink glimmering body is said to be the loveliest in the whole world. The bit I really want to focus on is a sudden transformation of Carbink. So maybe this doesn't exactly resemble what we normally see in evolution, but I think it's pretty close. This implies that a random mutation happened in Carbink, whether in real time or a random mutation happened to Carbink's DNA and then it gave birth to a Diancie. We don't really know. The Pokedex isn't that specific. We haven't seen too much information about how a Carbink arises. This could be some weird kind of an evolution, but I don't think so. This might be Darwinian evolution in action in the Pokemon games. So the Carbinks evolve into Diancie through Darwinian evolution because Diancie is stronger and therefore it provides them with a selective advantage to live in their environment. Who knows what the selective pressure might be, but that is that. We can further look at other Pokemon and see how maybe there's common ancestry. For example, Mew would be the common ancestor in this scenario because Mew has the ability to learn all the TMs. It's supposed to have been like the first Pokemon. There's all of this kind of information out there about Mew. And then all we have to really do is look as far as some of the bird Pokemon. Pidgey, Pidgeotto and Pidgeot have really big feet, really sharp beaks for getting bugs out of the ground. This is really good adaptation for Pokemon that live in a savanna type area. So Pidgey is selectively evolved, as opposed to Hoothoot. If you argue that there was a common bird ancestor and it was closer to Archeops, and I will do a whole video on Archeops. If you argue that there was a common ancestor, they're all so different. So this could be an example of evolution in action, and we could be able to see actual Darwinian evolution from Pokemon to Pokemon, as opposed to just metamorphosis, as we previously discussed. So I think that's going to do it for today. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more science behind the Pokemon games. I'm not sure what my next episode is going to be. I'm going to have to sit on it a bit. And hopefully episodes won't be so far spaced apart now. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more.